Guys have lost more limbs than a tree surgeon. Vince and Larry.
I love these guys. They remind me of my husband. Always broke and in a dead-end job.
By getting people to buckle up, they've saved thousands of lives. On the job, what's the first thing that goes through their heads? The steering wheel!
Vince and Larry, tell me, how do you want your coffee? Regular or decapitated?
Everybody give them a hand.
You could learn a lot from a dummy. Buckle your safety belt.
Welcome back. Jimmy, the mythical national championship picture is more confusing to fans everywhere than at any other time in recent years. For instance, Georgia Tech, the fans feel their unbeaten team should have been #1. Colorado, the 5th down, the possible loss to Missouri that wound up with them winning that game, ultimately winning the national championship. Miami, they felt that by beating a very good Texas team in the Cotton Bowl, they should have had consideration for a national championship. And Notre Dame claimed that they played the toughest schedule in the NCAA this year. They all could have been, by any right, they could have been the national champions. What is wrong with the present system? You know, even though Colorado was voted #1, you know, why the confusion?
Well, I think the confusion lies in their personal feelings that come into play when you're talking about a structure that is implemented in today's college football system. There's the AP poll, the Associated Press,
correct,
the UPI poll, the coaches poll, and the thing about the poll system is I think there's personal feelings that come into play, Mike. The coaches poll, being that they're playing each other throughout the year, there's rivalries that stem from that, and there's personal feelings involved. Therefore, voting could be one way or the other influenced.
What do you mean by that specifically? Are you saying that certain coaches may hold grudges against teams that are challenging for a #1 position?
Well, it's only human nature, Mike, and the same could be implied with the Associated Press. You could be covering a story as a reporter, go into a locker room and get thrown out and say, gosh, you know, what's the feelings that reporter would have?
So when at the end of the year, when it comes down to the voting, let's say you were the coach that threw me out as a reporter,
or the reporter,
or vice versa, you're going to not vote for that person, and that's the human element comes into play. Then I can.
Well,
see.
Exactly. The thing about it is when you have personal feelings involved and personal opinions, it could sway one way or the other in influencing your vote for the national champion.
Jimmy, then what is the answer? I mean, how could we solve this? I mean, do we have to pick out, we talked about the playoff system, and that's the answer that everybody, folks, talks about, shortening the season, adding some extra playoff teams, but if you're going to pick the top 16 teams, what criteria do you follow then in that case?
Well, I think those guidelines should follow suit with what the NFL does. They pick the division winners, or the league winners, or the conference winners, however you want to say it, and what happens is the remaining teams with the best records go into a wild card situation. And that would prove to be a better system, I think, than what we have now.
So what you're saying is that every college football program in America should be in a league?
Yeah, and I think you find that happening, Mike. You know, Penn State and is going into the Big Ten in a couple years. University of Miami is going into the ACC. Florida State is going into the SEC. So you find that happening, and I think that's going to be what they're going to be doing in the next few years.
Yeah, what about the independents that are left? Let's say somebody like Notre Dame. Okay, by the way, Miami is going in Southeast. I believe it's the Big East.
The Big East?
The Big East. They're going to the Big East.
Yeah, I thought it was one of the Eastern Conferences.
One of the Eastern Conferences. I see your point, but what about teams, let's say, like Notre Dame, that have already signed a very lucrative contract with NBC, and they were going to say, well, why should we go into a conference when we have all this money as independents that we're going to be making off the national contract?
Well, Mike, I think you have to look at the overall picture. When you have a situation that is not a positive one for the NC2A and collegiate football, with the bowl situation that's happening these days, what you have to look at is the overall picture. You might have to sacrifice the few to benefit the many. And when you look at the overall picture of college football and all the discussion that goes on at the end of the season, the playoff structure is the only way to determine a true national champion.
It may be what it has to come down to. And speaking of the national championship, Bowl Day, New Year's Day, it was just a blowout. Every game that was played, my God, every game was just a real disappointment in the sense that there was not really any good games except for what? The Orange Bowl with
the last two of the day, Mike, the Orange Bowl and the Sugar Bowl.
Tennessee and Virginia, those were the only two good games.
Yeah, Tennessee and Virginia in the Sugar, and of course Colorado, Notre Dame in the Orange.
So
the playoff structure is going to have to be constructed this way, Mike. The minor bowl games are going to have to be your preliminary games going right up through the quarterfinals, the semifinals, and obviously like a college or a collegiate type Super Bowl at the end, which will have to be one of the bigger bowl games, the Orange, the Rose, or maybe even the Sugar.
So the Rose Bowl won't necessarily be the Big Ten against the Pac-10 anymore under this new format. It'll be like a rotating type system for every year?
Well, in this concept, Mike, some of the old traditions will have to be thrown out, which is a shame, but it's going to have to be done.
You know, fans really were at the point that they were in a predicament, folks. There was nothing else to do but watch these teams that were being blown out, 38-3, 45-0, whatever. So we kind of like to roll back the clock. You know, we looked at every bowl game and we realized that there are some options out there for the fans and the television viewers, and we thought we'd take a good look and analyze what other options there were when we rolled back the clock to New Year's Day, 1991. Let us show you. Well, here on the Disney Channel, we have one of the top rushers of the day, Huey, Louie, and Dewey. They rush for 100 yards each.
Yeah, Disney employs that full house backfield.
Yeah, the running quack. Who's here on Nickelodeon?
Whose mascot is this?
I don't know, Bethune-Cookman or something. The Camels, I believe. Right here on Channel 5, of course, you had the
Rose Parade.
Rose
Great
Parade.
tradition. Great tradition,
really.
Rose Parade.
And the security was concerned here on
I
Channel 9.
like to have Barney 5 as my quarterback, actually.
Shut up.
Well, how about just staying one more night?
Anyways, as we move on here, and we
Look at the
have
other channels.
American Movie Classics, my God, the halfback of Notre Dame, or was that Hunchback? He really got beat up by the Colorado defense. Huh?
Colorado beat him up.
And here's the guy.
This guy's looking for a Rose Parade seat.
Absolutely. And of course, on PBS, you have your How to Make a Paper Snowflake.
Important in winter.
Definitely. And of course, what do rocket scientists do on their part-time? Here on MTV, we have a DJ.
The MTV DJs.
And if you don't have, of course, a Bart Simpson shirt, you can get one at the shopping channel.
I have
Jimmy?
two. You want one?
No, thanks. And here's a musical interlude on, what channel was this, Jimmy?
VH1,
How can you tell?
bottom right-hand corner. Like,
Left. Oh, the other way. Okay. Well, that was an interesting choice. Of course, there's also a Spanish halftime show.
you'll have to take over here, Mike. I'm not bilingual.
I think they're going for a draw. And speaking of draw, of course, HBO had the Girls from Sports
even more comfortable.
Magazine,
magazine.
exactly.
They're charming.
This is a Raiderette. And
Being in a swimsuit
I think we should
every
change channel. What do you think?
day, modeling,
Don't you dare.
sportswear, swimsuit.
Anyways,
Raiders had a good year.
yeah, so does she. And
A pleasure.
anyways, this
Have you seen her at the winning of the game?
Especially at the game.
it's kind of tough to look through binoculars, but anyways, let's go back
Especially
to
where you
Very
sit.
well. We
anyway.